topic is the implication of Chinese expansion in Africa. And of course, we're talking to Dr. LMadu3, who is the editor of the Pan-African Journal. And of course, Dr. LMadu3, let's look at, as the topic indicated, some of the implications for this expansion of Chinese economic activity for the United States and perhaps Western Europe, two of the areas that would probably be more interested in what is going on, or maybe the entire world ought to be interested in what is going on there.
Yeah, you know, with the Chinese population of 1.3 billion, that's the figure the Chinese government gave me, you know, 1.3 billion. It's a very large market, very large market. In fact, the Chinese population is larger than the whole African continent population, you know. So think about it. So it's a very large market with large needs. And now with the economy expanding, China needs what? A whole lot of oil to fuel that industrialization. You know, so many cars coming in China now. Before 1980s, there were very few cars in China. Today you have millions of cars and they need energy. So what China is doing now, say, hey, where are we going to get the oil? You know, to propel this industry, industrialization. Let's go to Africa. Exactly. Let's go to Africa since we already been there before, and you know, so we can give them preferential treatments, you know, so far as
something that they've never received from Western European nations.
That's correct. And since the Western nations and the World Banks, you know, give Africans loans at a very high interest, hey, we might as well give them money.
Free money, because they, because they get the economic results of that.
And get what we want, you know, and that's what, that's the magic, and that's what China has done. Now they've got into all kinds of businesses in Africa. They're becoming some, you know, what you call a monopoly. I mean, a few minutes ago I mentioned that 45% of the offshore oil reserves in Nigeria are owned by the Chinese. That's a whole lot of oil.
That is.
Okay, they have, in Southern Sudan now, the Chinese own almost half of the oil there. You go to Ethiopia, they're in there, you know, farming business. You go to Somalia, the same thing. You go to Tanzania, they've been there for long. They're still there. You go to Gabon, oil. Angola, the same. Equatorial Guinea, the same. You go to Chad, the same. Yeah, the Chinese oil merchants are all over the place.
Unchecked in a real sense. Is that what you say? Unchecked. I mean, nobody seems to want to create any kind of competition for that. Is that
because they are giving those countries what they need and receiving, you know,
in return the resource.
In return. And that's the key here. And Chinese, you know, doctrine in Africa centers around what I call two bipolar. One, supporting, you know, the governments, and two, investing in the economy. You know, and that's what they've done very well. They invest in the economy and make sure they keep the money at least to help the people there, not to invest,
take the money out.
Exactly. You see, so that makes it easier for Chinese to work in Africa. They respect the people's culture, you know, and support them when they need, and they do not criticize the governments in Africa. Even those who are violating human rights, the Chinese say, no, it's none of our business. Our business is to invest, make money, make sure our business is protected. There's stability. Whomever is the president or whomever party, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to criticize Mugabe. We don't want to criticize anybody. You know, we just want to make money.
We just want to get the money out and resources out of it.
Exactly, get the resources and leave them alone.
And while the West is standing around talking about the
human
loans
rights
that we've made, and so they...
And moreover, look at what's going on now. Most of the African economies are depressed, okay, because of the structural adjustment program. Remember, this structural adjustment program that was imposed over 20 years ago, okay, a lot of African countries are still suffering from paying back the money
that the loans they got. And somebody else has already run off with the money.
That's correct. That's correct. That's why the economies are depressed now. You know, a lot of African countries are paying more on interest on the money than the money itself to service the loans. So what happened? That's precisely the point. So they say, no, 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 we don't want to go back to other style again. You know, we are still paying the United States and France and Britain and the World Bank for money we borrowed in the 60s. Hey, you know,
the Chinese are coming in with free loans and free grants and whatever, and got all the taking all the resources.
That's correct. Why can't we deal with them? Let's deal with them. And that's exactly what's happening. That's the style the Chinese, you know, brought in to do business. Yeah, while they want money, at the same time, you know, they want to balance it with the interest of the governments they're dealing with.
Well, how could this policy be used, and I use the word manipulated because that's what the whole thing is, manipulated. How could this policy be used to help the African people?
Well,
you know,
I think what African governments should learn, you know, from the Chinese is to privatize a lot of the government-owned, you know, structures. Most of the African countries are still operating on what you might call government, private, you know, enterprise. Most of the economy is in government hands, and no country ever grows where government runs everything. That's the downfall of the African economy, is that it's government control. Over 80–90% of the resources controlled by the government, and you can't operate that way.
And that's an effort on the part of the government to try to keep control of the resources.
That's correct. And when government controls the resources, what happens? You know, instances of corruption increases, you know, dictatorship. The people, you know, because they don't have control of the resources themselves, they can't do anything about it. See, that's why people at times wonder, say, well, why are those Africans very passive? You know, they just let somebody stay in power for years. Because the masses don't have the control of the resources to challenge the government. Hey, if the government is paying you, you can't start demonstrating against that government because you lose your job. Okay? So, but when the economy is privatized and say, hey, 90–95% of the resources in the hands of the people in private enterprises, yeah, people can then be able to agitate against government because government doesn't control their livelihood. But when government controls your livelihood and everything, it's difficult for you to agitate, you see? So that's very important. But though China is still what we call an authoritarian state, but it has privatized, you know, its economy to an extent. To an extent, you know, that it fuels growth and all this. Before, in the rural areas in China, you had what you call collectivization. You know, where farmers farm together, sell their products together,
and then
divide it together. Regardless of how hard you work, you still get the same thing somebody who is sleeping is getting. Okay? But when Deng Xiaoping came, he said, no, 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 no. You can have somebody sitting down, you know, digging a hole the whole day, and somebody digs 10 holes. You got to pay the person who dug 10 more than the person who dug 1. Okay? Yeah, that's what he did in the village. He said, hey, you know, we're not going to go back to that old thing. If you're a farmer and you can till the ground quicker than somebody, and, you know, hey, you get paid more. And that's what happened.
Even though it's under the guise of collectivism and communism and all of that, he's still...
we got to pay somebody who works harder, who can, you know, pay everybody the same.
Some kind of incentive and some kind of motive for
working. That's what he did. That's exactly what he did. That's what kicked off the economy. He said, because everybody thinks they're going to get the same thing, nobody wants to work harder than the rest.
Well, over the last... what can the United States do? I mean, is the United States just forced to... sit on the sideline and watch all this activity go on? Because this is a large market.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, if you look at today, the United States gets more oil from Africa than from Saudi Arabia. And people don't know that, okay? Yeah, than from Saudi Arabia. And that's the problem. The question you asked is very important. Because now, with all the problems we have in the Middle East, the United States say, hey, you know, Africa is our savior.
Still, they have not, that's what I was wondering, still they've not looked to Nigeria and some of these other areas where the oil exists.
We already get about 25% of oil here from Nigeria, okay?
And so we already do a lot of...
That's correct. But what is happening is that China is challenging that hegemony and saying, no, we're not going to allow them to take all that oil. We better go there and get most of it before they come in.
There's a difference between getting 25% of it and 20% of it, even 10% of it.
And only need two.
Very
That's
good.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Dr. LMadu, we're going to have to call an end to this for today.
Yes.
But this is the information that we thought that you would bring to us, and we certainly appreciate that.
Yeah.
And of course, We know that some of these things will never work themselves out, but at least we have some information in reference to it. And of course, let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.